Hi everybody, thanks for watching this. I wanted to tell you this is a little time sensitive.
So let us anchor ourselves into the elements of this space in Iceland. If you are comfortable with and want to close your eyes to avoid any outdoor distractions. But maybe these are not really distractions because you are fully in Gaia here. It is all amplifying your experience. Your benevolence, your magnificence, your divinity. Go into a deeper silent place where you allow the ocean to guide you, the elements of nature to guide you, the wind, the warmth of the sun, the cold of the air, the salty smell of the ocean, the vibration of these crystal glacial lagoons around you, the vibration of you connecting to the vibration of the earth and to the elementals here, infusing you with energy of this island, of its beauty, of its treasures that it has for you, and the gifts and the way it speaks to you in a unique way just for you. And also collectively as one group, as one coherent group, creating another moment of sacred space for us. Celebrating your journey as a soul once more on earth. Maybe reaching another level of consciousness today that is different than yesterday. Filling your heart with light, with more intuition, into closer to your true state of being that has nothing to do with the physical, but everything to do with your light and your consciousness, your enlightenment. Breathe and go deeper into that space. You feel more safe and more sacred, and radiate it to this entire group, to this entire island, to this entire planet that needs it the most right now. And as we are state of this radiance, let us welcome again the wisdom, the love, the benevolence and light from Kryon.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. Message number 4. Coming from this beautiful island country called Iceland. I speak to the group. You have come on this journey, perhaps not knowing what to expect. Perhaps some of you weren't even coming for the channeling. But did you notice you've been channeled unto anyway? This land is filled with mythology. And by this 4th day, you start to hear the stories from those Icelanders who want to tell you. They want to tell you things that perhaps are hard to believe or hard to understand. They've named the glaciers and they all have genders, the mountains, the beaches. They have personalities. But that's not all. There are stories about everything. Now, what is your belief system about something perhaps which would be elvish or trollish or any of those things. And I'll tell you, dear ones, it has nothing to do with your belief system and everything to do with that which is metaphoric. These stories are ones that have been told all over the planet by the indigenous, everywhere, not just here. They've been carried down and carried down. What the rocks might stand for, or the story of how they appeared there that has nothing to do with geology. And I wanted you to think for a moment of what this might mean. It is a broad brush, I know, but I'm going to tell you right now that the mythology is almost what I would call a cosmology, a belief the planet is alive. Not just alive, but the planet has something to say. It's the story we have given you for over 30 years. And the story is this. This planet knows who you are. The planet coexists with you. It is not something that is apart from you, and all the indigenous knew it. So analyze for a moment the stories that you hear. For this group, from your guides, there's the story of an interaction between human being and the elementals. And the stories are often very, very good. They talk about the elementals sometimes in a positive way, but always in a way that knows the humans are here. Sometimes the stories are of rescues, and sometimes they are not. Sometimes there are stories of the elementals pushing back to the humans, saying, not now, not yet. But it's always about an interaction, is it not? Human being to elemental. Elemental being pieces and parts of this planet. Nowhere so far on any Kryon tour has this been seen as much as here. And it will simply improve and get better. So I want every time this group hears about these stories to use the metaphors within your own imagination of what that really truly might mean. Does it mean that an elemental had a personality and turned to stone as a troll? Or does it mean that the planet had something to say? And this was the best way of giving that beautiful message that the earth is alive and knows you're here. It really does. It always has. The letter today is E. In Iceland, it is the third letter. It's the fourth message. Many are starting to guess what the letters may mean. Some of you already guessed it. Most of you did not. And yet it's what Kryon is all about. And the word is enlightenment. Now let's study enlightenment. Almost everyone who thinks they know more than the other is enlightened. And so the word itself can mean many things. When we talk about it to you, we speak of the word embedded in enlightenment as light. And the metaphor has always been this, that you carry a light. And that light is one that would expose things in dark places that hadn't been exposed before. Enlightenment, therefore, is also a name which goes further to the word light worker. So enlightenment would apply to this group or those listening as people, human beings on this planet who carry guidance. Many times we use the metaphor of the lighthouse. Now, all of you right now are on a beach. A beautiful but very cold ocean is before you. All around you are things that would seem to be diamond-like ice crystals, but they're huge and enormous. You could sit on them if you wanted. Think for a moment of the ships that might want to come here, but they can't, because they have no idea if there is a guidance or a port anywhere along this coastline or anywhere on this island. And so enter the idea of a lighthouse. And we've used this so many times. The lighthouse is placed there for guidance. It's not about a philosophy, is it? The lighthouse does not scream that they have a belief system that you should believe in, or if you don't, some things will happen to you. The lighthouse stands silent and strong. It doesn't even have a name. The lighthouse is something that will guide the ships to a safe harbor, because the lighthouse has been placed there for a reason, knowing that it's a safe place to be. This is what a light worker who is enlightened in our definition does. You stand there on this planet knowing something that others don't. It's not about a prophet. It's not about a belief system or a doctrine. It's about the common sense of the Creator, of the planet, of things that the indigenous knew and that are being passed to you even today. Perhaps a better way to live where you'll have less fear and a lot more comfort. A way to get around health issues that seem to be those that are created even by worry. We always go to the first metaphor we ever gave to you that shows enlightenment. You're in a dark room. No one can see the other. There is fear because the unknown is present. You don't know who is around you. You don't know what they are believing or what they might do. Someone in the group lights a match, and for the first time, the room can see a little clearer. And they start to see that the others around them are just like them, that they don't have to fear, or the situation perhaps is now illuminated and truth starts to be revealed. One match did that. You might say it was like the lighthouse, but it was people with people. This is what you offer the planet, dear ones. The one match becomes many, the room gets lighter, and as that room gets lighter, the individuals start to relax and understand things like war is not the answer, things that are an enlightened way of living, a caring way, a compassionate way. And in these things, it dispenses that which is comfort. Fear starts to go away because you can see clearly a truth. Today, as I sit here, the virus is spreading, and there is great fear, but there is also truth, that this is temporary, that there is overreaction. The light that you spread in this place to others is important, to show them that there is comfort here, not fear. Common sense will win out. And even though you might say, well, Kryon, how do I do that in the middle of a beach? The answer is very well. You see, that light you carry is a multidimensional truth that spreads instantly to whomever you send it to. That is a truth. There are multidimensional aspects of this light you carry, and if you then concentrate on family, on groups, on even cities, to send them what you have, Lighthouse, to send them that match in the darkness that will give them comfort for these times. That's why you're here. That's why you exist. That is the enlightenment and the E that we speak of. And so it is. Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon. of magnetic service. Again, I know where I am, and honor that which is here. The name of the place is the temple of wisdom. And so what we wish to do in this small amount of time is to bring you the kinds of wisdom that you've been asking for. That every single old soul in this new energy is starting to ask about. And the subject title, and humans like to title everything, would be body communication. And even before we begin, I will tell you that this is specifically about body communication of you to your cellular structure and not the other way around. That's for another channel. There's two kinds of communication. It's not one way. But we are going to speak of you and your body right now. Before we even begin, it's necessary, dear human being, to review the blocks that get in the way of you understanding what is to come. You only have one reality. The reality that you share as a human being, and you share it even with my partner, is that you live in a linear world. You experience things in certain ways, and you're used to the way that humanism works. Human psychology, all of the things that you do, the motions, your actions, the reasons behind things, accomplishments, punishments, all of those things go into your perception of the way things work. It's not an indictment of your intelligence when I say that then you naturally project this to everything else around you. And whether it's God, or whether it's simply perception of reality in a multidimensional state, you bring forth only what you know. And that's a bias. There are certain ways in humanism that you would accomplish things through hard work and repetition, and you then apply them to everything. There are certain ways that you work in humanism, your relationships to other humans, the give and take that you have, and you apply it, therefore, to everything else. We have told you before that some of your organized religions have taken this to the absolute max. And they have a dysfunctional God, one that can be angry and judgmental. And all the other things that humans have. And before we begin the discussion, we say to you that you got to drop that. In the discussion, we may remind you of some traditional ways and then balance it with the truth. You know, it's beautiful. The premise of this channeling is that you are able to speak to your cellular structure, as we have been saying for years, and it isn't hard. That you've got to get around the human biases, and it isn't hard. Let's start the discussion, and we have to, with what I will call the preamble, or that which is necessary in order to accomplish what we're going to talk about today. We have to define, as best we can, consciousness, human consciousness. Now, this would not be the definition that you would read in your academia. These are the things that we see. Human consciousness is divided into several parts. We're going to talk about just two. The first one, it is that soup of reaction or behavior which is driven by two parts of the human body. And the first one is the synaptic brain, that is to say, the storehouse of experience. And the second is the multidimensional part that you believe is responsible for creativity, intuition, and God. It is a mixture of those two through free choice of the human being. It's the balance of those two which create a human being that indeed appears to others to be in control of their own life and satisfied with themselves. When this is out of balance, either way, you get dysfunction. When the human being has a consciousness that is only in the synaptic brain, there is no credibility of God in them. There is no ability for them to have truly creative thought. And they are so pleased to go only with what they know. And it serves them well. It is dysfunctional to us because there's the God part that is always there, that is always available, and would give them so much of an increased awareness and light. But in free choice, that is what they do. There's the other one, and you have seen it, dysfunctional New Agers. I will call them floaters. They are so wrapped up in that which is esoteric that they have no clue about life. And the synaptic brain doesn't have a chance. Logic and common sense are thrown out, and the only thing that remains is what we will call make-believe and woo-woo. You have seen them. You know what? That's acceptable for them. But that is human consciousness. A balance between that which is synapse and survival and that which is the part of God that you carry around. Now, where are you? And that is how we must begin this channel. If you are listening today to this, whether you are a human in the chair or you are later a human in the chair, hearing this through transcription, reading it, the chances are you are aware of the divine part of you. Now, the divine part of you is the elusive part. It's the mysterious part. But it's the part that's real as the synaptic brain. And here's what I'm going to say. This is linked so strongly to your ability to talk to your body. If you are an intellectual and you are only trusting that which is synaptical in your brain, you should stop now and go no further, because you will not have any success with what I'm about to tell you. Isn't it interesting that these are linked so strongly? You have to be aware of the divine inside, because that is the pathway that is going to talk right to that which we have called innate. We have given you information years ago that there would come a day on this planet when the health of individuals might very well be measured in a far different way than it is today. That those with a higher consciousness would obviously be living longer, and there would be no medical measurement that would give the reasons why. We told you that consciousness may eventually drive the very attribute of human balance in a cellular way, and a chemical way. and that the other things that you now are centered on, which are, of course, diet, exercise, will take a back seat to consciousness. And if we told you that, what are you then going to bring as the conclusion? And that is that things are changing for the human being. The very attributes that keep you alive are going to start changing for the human being. Greater awareness, by the way, of the three-dimensional attributes of what your body needs is going to bring you greater health. But that alone is not going to help you talk to your cellular structure. So if you've come this far, and if you are on board, as they say, and you can say honestly, I believe that there's a divine part of me, then we can continue. And the rest of this information will be given with the premise that you have that. Those who are spiritually minded have come to that point many times. Those who are spiritually minded know about the cellular structure of their body because it has a spiritual complement and component, a benevolence, and they're ready to go. But what they do next is often interesting. Historically, the human bias kicks in, and even those who would call themselves enlightened and New Age will start what I will call a linear process of repetition and nonsense. Things that they have decided are needed to talk to their cellular structure. Why would you want to talk to your cellular structure? And it should be obvious. What is the paradigm that you grew up with? Historically, here it is. That you, as an enlightened creature, live in your head. That everything that happens to you is in your head. The greatest poetry ever written, the greatest music ever composed, the greatest paintings started in the head. And that the rest of your body is the vehicle that supports your head. And your head, every once in a while, will look down at your body and say, I sure hope this thing works. And that is traditional. And then it's enhanced by everything you see around you with those catching diseases or things that happen. And then the fear starts. The fear will create the hypochondriac who is afraid of everything, who believes they're going to catch everything. And by the way, they usually do. That's the human body trying to agree with what it hears from the head, by the way. And that ought to give you a hint of what's coming. That's the traditional thought that you don't have any control. Now you come to this place where you know better and you're sitting and you're listening to this and you're ready to go. And in the past, the New Age has just been filled with processes that are supposed to then have you be able to talk to your cells. Now, not talking back from your cells, but you to your cells. And they are filled with the following thing. Repetition, over and over. Processes that a human being thinks would be attributes that the cells would like. You have to go to a certain place in a certain temperature, be in a certain energy, face a certain direction. You might have to do it several times. If you can do that, you'll get the body ready to listen. There'll be a small window of opportunity. You can give a message. That's the human bias. Dear ones, it's time to demystify this. This is not accurate. This is not the way of it. It makes an assumption that the body is stupid. It doesn't know anything about anything. It is completely and totally separated and divorced from your consciousness, from anything you're doing, and it's clueless. I want to tell you the truth. Scientifically, this is going to be proven, and it's not going to be that far away. The cells of your body, especially what you would call innate, all have something in common, and we're going to give it a name for the first time ever. And here it is. It's going to be CAL. C-A-L. And here's what it stands for. Cells are listening. Cells are listening. This is how you were built. The divine complement in you is built into every cell of your body. The cells are a collection of what has been created by the DNA. Through the blueprint that is in there, every cell exists with one attribute, and it hangs out so clearly on itself, it's waiting for instructions. And the only instructions that it will hear are the ones given through the divine complement of human consciousness, directly with pure intent to it. Did you hear that? Let's talk about that communication for a moment. It's like every single cell had a telephone that was ready to be answered if you knew the number. If you could dial the number, you could talk to all of them at once. They would all pick up the phone, and it'd be you. That's built in. And it doesn't respond to linearity. The communications with the cells of the body is a multi-dimensional communication, but your human consciousness is also. It's part of the DNA field. It's part of the Merkaba of your body. I'll tell you what an intuitive can do. He could look at your soul, literally, through the Merkaba field and tell you whether or not you have activated any part of spiritual intent or whether you're just playing the role. What is pure intent? All right, let's talk about it in your way. I'm going to use it again. When you fall in love with someone, and you look at them in the eyes, two lovers looking at one another, there's nothing like it. Do you feel God in that? Do you remember? Do you feel God in that? You do. You're not even aware of it. Do you realize that this is why being in love is so amazing? Because God's there. Do you realize that this is not synaptic? You do understand that, do you not? In fact, the brain is really frustrated that you're in love. It's saying, you ought to eat better. And you say, yeah, but I'm in love. Well, you ought to have better reasoning. Well, I don't because I'm in love. Why are you putting your shoes in the freezer? Because I'm in love. I forgot. That's what it is. Now, when you look at somebody and you say, I love you, that's pure intent when you're in love. And you do. And you pour out your heart to the other, and the other to you. And you are entangled as one. There's nothing like it. Now I want you to turn that around. Inward. There is a divine part of you that is in love with you, waiting for you to say, I love you. And it'll know if you mean it. if you're not in love with a person, but they want to hear it and you say, I love you, it's not the same. And you know it's not the same. It never will be. The magic isn't there. The connection isn't there. The entanglement is not there. It's just words. And so if you practice this about what we're saying today, in that form, it's not pure. And you don't have the right phone number for the cells of your body. But when you fall in love with yourself, honoring the body to such a degree that you realize it's part of God's creation of you. Without it, there would be no enlightenment. Without consciousness, nothing. It has to operate well, and it wants to. It wants to. And here is the opportunity. Years ago, you saw the gurus of India. They could control the things that are supposed to be automatic in the body, and they had control. They could slow their heartbeats down. They could make respiration extremely slow. They could take control of certain kinds of things within their body that nobody thought they could. They were talking to a part of their body that was listening and adjusting. They knew how to do it. And so do you. So knowing this, what is next? Well, we've just given you two premises. Number one, in touch with the divine part of you creates a pathway for you then to call your cells. C-A-L. Cells are listening. They are born with you listening to what you want. They are waiting for human consciousness to give them instructions. We'll do that in a minute. Now, how do you do it? Now that you know they're waiting, how is it possible? What would you say? There are still those who think they understand the process, that are awakened, they're light workers, there may even be New Age, and they got it covered. They got a process for it. And here's what you do. You have to talk out loud to your cells, and you got to tell them exactly what you want. And here's how many times you got to do it, and you should do it every day. Does that sound right to you? To some it does. And if it does, I want you to recognize what you're doing. You are applying a linear human attribute to a multidimensional, beautiful system that is beyond anything that you can imagine. That is what you are calling your innate. And it doesn't respond to repetition. Let's talk about innate some more. You're ready to talk to a system that hasn't heard from you before. Not really. Not like this. There is a new energy, light worker, on this planet. Old soul, listen to me. Your tool set is being enhanced. That's why you're listening to this. You can do this. I wouldn't be giving you something you cannot do. You get in touch with your cells. I want to tell you that they're going to react. I'll give you that information in just a moment. I want you to look at this as in linearity. Let's look at your best friend. Every one of you. You would have a best friend. Perhaps it's your partner in life. Perhaps it's not. Somebody you can just sit with and talk to. And there are no parameters. There are no rules. You can say anything you want to, and you can pour your heart out to them, and they will listen. And they can do the same with you, and that's a best friend. I want to ask you something. Let us say you have this best friend, and you're going to be with them for 3 days. And you do this. Day one. You get up the next morning, they sit at the table, you're having a meal or something, and you give them all the same information again. How do you think that's going to work? Well, it doesn't work with your cells either. Do you understand what I'm saying? Your cells are you. What would you say to you? Your cells are listening. C-A-L. You're ready for this. They're ready for this. They've been listening since you were born, waiting for the time when you would awaken to this possibility that you could actually speak to them. So let's do it. What would be something you would say? And how would you approach this? First of all, I want to tell you, they understand your language. They're part of you. You will talk to them any way you want to. Out loud, through thought, through writing, it doesn't matter. Because you have their number. And the key is love. You have got to love your cellular structure enough that you can say, I love you. And it knows you do. It can't be simpler, and yet it can't be harder. And you sit for a moment. What would you say? What will happen? When the body starts to listen to you, there are some processes that it goes through. Let me tell you what they are, and then I will give you an example of a communication, and then we'll be done. I want you to know some things. When you start talking to your cellular structure and you got the number right, the first thing that's going to happen is massive amounts of chills. You're going to know you got through, dear one. You're going to know you got through. And these are the cells of your body celebrating. Celebrating. The innate, the smart body, whatever you want to call it, is part of you. They're having a party. Did you hear that? We've got communication. It sure took long enough. Let's have a party. And although it's metaphoric, and although it is silly sounding, I'm going to tell you that that is what happens. The body has joy. Did you know that? The innate, when you're talking to it, feels great. Those of you involved with health, do you know what it feels like to be healthy? Your entire body is rejoicing with every step, with every breath. That's the innate celebrating. You start talking to it. All these years it's been listening, hoping you would, because it without direction, it just does what it wants. You know that, don't you? I talked about the law of averages. My partner talked a bell-shaped curve. Without instructions, your body is simply going to follow that which is average. Do its own thing. With instructions, you control it. Couldn't be simpler. First thing it does is celebrate. The next thing it does is start to work. And I want to talk about that starting to work. Depending upon the things that you are communicating to your cellular structure, whether it is for health or for healing or for youthing, no matter what it is, you've got to give it some time. There is a practicality here that you have to understand, because these things are only going to be accomplished through cell division and what you call rejuvenation. Your body is built to rejuvenate itself. Most of the organs in the body, including the skin, rejuvenate themselves. Over a period of time, you get new ones. This is how you stay alive. When you start talking to your cellular structure, those instructions are going to the data in DNA, and they're going to be picked up in the next rejuvenation cycle. And so you're not going to get results tomorrow. This is common sense. It becomes spiritual common sense to ally for the first time the idea that there is a time it takes in your linearity with your cellular structure even to accomplish healing. That not all things will be allied to spontaneous remission, which is another story. Doesn't that make sense? And so you will start to feel it over time. And the things that you are working on and asking for will start to show themselves over time. And it's the third thing that I want to tell you about that you're not ready for. When you start talking to your cells, the innate knows that your consciousness is benevolent. It knows you want to stay. And there are automatic systems that will go into place improving other parts of your body that you never ask to have improved. You're going to start a process of extended life. And healing will start to occur and balance in areas that your consciousness has no idea about, but that your innate knows all about. You have just awakened the bridge between human consciousness and cellular structure. It's easy. But you got to fall in love. Imagine for a moment you sit alone, and perhaps it's out loud, and you're going to make first contact. Doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, and you're realizing you really are in love with the divine part of you. Perhaps you can even visualize the face of God, whatever that means to you. That you can see your eternalness in every cell of your body. And you realize there's a cellular structure that is waiting to hear from you. C-A-L. And so you begin, and you realize you've got their number. You can feel it. And even before you open your mouth, the chills start to begin because they picked up the telephone. And now they're really listening. And the first thing you might say, we know each other, and I love you. I'm sorry it took so long for me to figure it out. I want you to go into the processes that you know about that I don't. I want you to come together in a benevolence that would create health and a long-lasting human being. I want you to talk to me in whatever ways you can that I can recognize. I want to hold your hand and you hold mine for the rest of my life. If there's any inappropriateness and imbalance chemically in my body, I want it to go away through time and appropriate action. I realize I have habits that are killing me, and I want them to change. I realize that I have a very bad height to weight ratio. Want me to explain that? I'm being benevolent and kind. Dear cellular structure, I want my metabolism to echo my magnificence. Help me to be the right size for the greatest health. Change what is needed. Pull on the Akash if you need to. In remembrance of who I used to be. Change my diet preferences if I need to. Let the body crave what it needs and not what I want it to need. Bring it to a place of balanced divinity. And I promise I will talk to you every day because I love you. And then don't hang up the phone. And then don't hang up the phone. Now, if you want to analyze this channel, you'll realize that your consciousness never told the body specifics. Because the innate knows what to do. It's just waiting for the call. You're asking for balance. And innate knows what to do. The smart part of your body can even get in touch with your Akash. It can pull on the right parts of it for health, for change, for dropping habits that you have that you shouldn't have. As simple as eating too much or the wrong things. And you can't help it because it's a habit. And that can change very, very, very quickly. Within a couple of cycles of cellular rejuvenation. Creating actual differences in what you want to eat. So there's no suffering and there's no big hunger because it's pulled in a you from the past who didn't have the habit that you had today. That is the power in front of you. CAL. Now some of you are going to start doing this and you're going to get results right away. And I want to tell you, if you're one of those, you've got a job to show others how to do it. Because it's not going to happen overnight by someone listening to this channel necessarily. You're going to have to show them what you've done. Lastly, how does it make you feel, old soul? To know you got a friend inside. To the extent that you can put years and years and years on your life. All of this in appropriateness of the plan that you've laid out for Earth, who you're going to be next time, when you're supposed to come and go. It's about staying healthy while you're here. And that is way outside of the bell-shaped curve. And that's what you can do. There'll be another channel at another time on how to recognize what the body says to you. For you don't speak its language necessarily. And you've got to understand through some processes how it might speak back to you so that you can give it better instructions. It's a cycle, you see. The channel today is given in a very sacred place to create new tools for you because it's time.
Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of magnetic service. I'm more than that. For those of you who could see the colors, they're even here now. They have come in quickly. They've come in quickly because those who sit in the chairs have expected them and want them. The entourage sits at your feet. They come into this place full of love. I am more than crying on magnetic service. I'm an angel, just like you.
Speaking through a human being, you call it channeling. We invite you to feel that in this place there is a sacred energy which is beyond the sum of the whole. Some of you will not just feel it, you'll experience it. You will become it. You'll leave differently than you came. You'll know that the message is real. You'll wonder about who God must be. Beyond the doctrine of the religions that you celebrate and that you enjoy and you love, beyond these, there is a greater energy. One that encompasses you, far grander than you have ever felt could be so. My partner, he remarked to you that in came the 1111 in 1987, the harmonic convergence. He spoke of that energy and how it drastically affected this planet and all who were on it. And in free choice, some of you didn't feel it, some of you didn't know it. And that's okay. But I'm going to ask you this. What happens now that you do know it? I'm looking at this group and I tell you this. I know your names. I know who's here. It's glorious to me. I'm the one who said goodbye to you on the other side of the veil when you came in. I saw those colors. Oh, magnificent you are. I saw you come in. With the energy of communication that is non-linear, I spoke to you and I said, are you ready to go do it? And you said, I've never been more ready. I'm going to go during a time, I promise. I want to tell you something, human beings, those reading and hearing this, you are the ones who will change the planet and bring it to the vibration that 2012 is expecting. It is your lineage. It is your purpose in life. It is why you came. It is why you're reading the words on the page. I see those who are reading, even though you cannot. Stuck in a time frame you are, which is appropriate for who you are. I see the potentials of those whose eyes are on the page and those ears who are listening to this on their electronic devices. And I ask you, each one, do you look at yourselves as a warrior of the light? Do you look at yourselves as a lighthouse, or are you just making do day by day? Do you think of yourselves as a spiritual person? Could it be that there's an angel inside? When you look in the mirror, what does it tell you? Do you see just a human being who's aging, or do you see divinity? Do you see something to love? We'd love to activate those energies within your DNA of awareness of God in you. Layer 10, new beginnings, awareness of God in you. If you start looking at yourself differently, I will tell you this, you will see the divinity inside. You'll see the masters of the ages in your eyes. And you'll know what I'm doing here is correct and true. All of the information I have ever given you was so that you steer this planet toward peace on earth. I give this message in the middle of August
2006. I rarely will date these, but I want you to know right now why I'm doing it. Because there are those who are afraid, and they're stirring in duality. And their heads surface because there is trouble in Israel, they say. And the marker is that when there's trouble in Israel, beware. And the mythology will tell you that there's much more to it even than that. Get ready to go, some will say. There's going to be a change on the planet. I want to remind you what I told you in 1989. Remember these words, because we're going to talk about the Jews. Remember these words. As go the Jews, go earth. I said those words. I mean them. I wanted you to remember them and listen to this. I will say them again. I will say them in review. That may give you a hint that when there's trouble in Israel, indeed, there will be changes on earth. And what are you going to do with it? I'll ask you some questions in a moment about that, but I want to do a review. This is for the Jews. Yes, there are Jews reading this. Yes, there are Jews hearing this. Yes, there are Jews here now. Let me tell you yet again about a lineage. And let me explain some things to the rest of you may not understand, and this may clear it up. Let me try to present this in a way I have not before. The Jews are not a race. Anthropologists will look at the Jewish civilization and say it has every attribute of a race, but it is not. It does not qualify scientifically as a race, but it has a different attribute than any civilization that's ever existed. Intuitively, they're picking up on the Akash. There must be a core karmic group that lays on the crystalline grid of the planet and never changes. It cannot change. That means it is the staple of humanity. And in this particular case, in this thing you call civilization, it is the Jews. And they have come in for this purpose. And they were called God's chosen people. And before you lift your head and say, why them and not me? Why do they get to be chosen instead of me? Let me finish the sentence. God's chosen people to suffer and to be moved around the planet. And wherever they went, to have someone who was after them to wipe them out. That's their purpose, because they hold the core of the Akash. Intuitively, the dictators, the masters, the Caesars knew it. Intuitively, if they could eliminate the Jews, they themselves would take on the power of the Akash. They would become the core. That's how it goes. And if you think to yourself, you say, well, that's an interesting story. Kryon, you got any proof of that? Just look at your history and tell me what other people has been pursued in this fashion all the way through their history, all the way through for the Egyptians, to the Romans, to the present day, to those in the Middle East, to the Nazis. They all wanted them gone or enslaved. This is what they were chosen for. And let me tell you the other side of that. And in return for this earth service as a Jew, they had a pure karmic attribute that each time they returned in a life, they got to be Jewish again. This means that instead of passing around the torch of experience, as some of you have done through civilization, they've always been Jewish. Once a Jew, always a Jew until they step out of that circle, and then they cannot go back. The karmic attribute is a pure one. Now look around the earth and tell me this. Perhaps it's not politically correct to say it, but I will tell you that Jews run things. They're in important places. They're the masters of the shops. They understand how human nature works because they've been there and they've done that for eons and eons. They've got an edge on the rest of you, and they pay for it. That's who the Jews are. And this then plays into these end times we talked about, which are really the beginning times. How many of you have seen 11:11 on the clock? Does that say end times to you? 11 is illumination twice. Illumination squared, if you want to say. It's illumination twice. Illumination. That's not the end. There are those who says it's elimination. It's not. It's illumination. So why are things so bad, Kryon, right now? Why are they so bad? Why is there so much fighting? Why are their enemies then raising their heads? And I'm telling you, this is what we told you about. 18 years ago, we told you about this battle. This is not new. There are those right now who don't understand this, and they're frightened and they're fearful and calling themselves even light workers. And I say to these light workers, were you really truly ever a light worker, or did you just give yourself that label? Maybe it's time to examine yourself. Are you claiming to be the chef and yet you're afraid to go into the kitchen because it's hot? Are you claiming to be the windmill that generates electricity, but you're afraid of the wind? What about the lighthouse that's afraid of the storm? Doesn't exist. Dichotomous, it is. And if that's you, you can change it. And that's why I'm giving you this message. Don't fear this. Look upon it in the wisdom of the ages and say, this is right. This is what we expected. Now, let's temper it. Let's send light there. Let's make this a short battle. Let's make it one that makes a difference. Kryon, why would we do that? How can we possibly do this when the greatest minds of this century are trying to figure it out, and they're having trouble and they're squabbling? Nothing is happening. It just seems like they never come to a solution. It doesn't seem to make any difference. If that's your reality and your truth, that's exactly what it'll be. But what about this one? You send the intelligence of the cosmos through a beam of light. Climb those stairs. Strike that light and send this intelligence of the cosmos into those areas where those can see light and think of things they've never thought of before. What about that one? Be one that stands in the lighthouse and says, I have no idea how profound this light is, but I can feel the divinity in it. I'm sending messages that are so divine that the leaders at the United Nations will see their way through this. They'll convince those who are fighting to stop that there can be a peace plan, even with a terrorist, that starts to make sense. I told you years ago about this battle, did I not? The old energy and the new. I told you. About spiritual rage. In a day when you didn't even hear the word in the terminology I used it, I said spiritual rage is something you can watch for in these times, and here it is. And there will be those who will continue to say, in the name of God, the Jews must go. They represent an old energy. And I want to tell you, if you look at them on sorrow for what might happen to them, it is their choice to have said it, to have believed that way. It is their choice to turn to the energy they wish. It's part of the battle. You may not like it. Go back and read the first transmission of Kryon in book 1. I said up to 1% may have to die on this planet. And if that is so, it's 1% that have come for that reason. Understand this. Do not fear this. And then later I told you this has drastically changed, and it has. Through your free choice, it looks like far fewer. And now I will give you another statement. 2007 looms as a pivotal year. 2008 will be one that brings massive changes. That's also an election year for the United States. 2008 is a 10. Represents a 1 in numerology. It means new beginnings. 2007 is a 9. Completion of some old patterns will occur. This is all part of what we see coming. And it's not going to be achieved by those who are running the other way. And it's not going to be achieved by those who are afraid to show their light. And it's not going to be achieved by chefs who never cook a meal. It's going to be achieved by those who fearlessly face it and say, tell me what is happening. I want to know where to send the light. Who make time in their day specifically for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes to say, I don't know if this is helping or not, but I believe intuitively that there's something to this. I'm going to gather my friends together. We're going to pray for our leadership. I'm going to pray, you say, for the Palestinians, the Lebanese, and the Israelis. That's what you can do with sending intelligent cosmic energy. That's energy that knows what to do. So many years ago, we told you about the battle. And now it begins. Indeed. We told you this many times over the last 3 years. Lighthouses were never built in safe places. You want to be a lighthouse, do you? Really? And what do we mean by that? You could be a lighthouse here, in this great city. You could be a lighthouse here. And some say, well, it doesn't seem to be a dangerous place. I could be a lighthouse here. I'll tell you where the danger is. Is when you turn on your light, all of those who are dark in the planet see it. At some level, you become a target. You show yourself, do you not? You show yourself to your neighbors, do you not? What you stand for, do you not? You turn on the light and suddenly you're no longer invisible, are you? Are you ready for that? What is your family going to say? What are those workers going to say around you? Are you ready for that? Well, let me give you some advice. You don't have to evangelize anything. All you have to do is say, I believe in prayer. Who wants to pray with me? You don't have to mention Kryon. You don't have to say anything about the New Age, any of your doctrines or your mythologies or anything. All you have to say is, who wants to pray with me? Maybe you'll get some volunteers. And so I'm going to address this right now for the readership, for the earth, for anyone who wants to hear. I'm going to address this and I'm going to say, dear Hindu, what is it your doctrine says you should do right now? What is it that you have been taught, that you are feeling, that is so true in you? Those who are the Sikhs of the earth, what is it that your elders have taught you is appropriate right now? What should you do about this? Are you doing it? Have you been told that you're a part of the earth energy in any way? Hindu, let me ask you this. Who are you this time around, and why are you here? What has the accumulation of lifetimes brought you here? The Buddhist, what have you been taught that you can do? Buddhist, are you truly part of everything? Is there a oneness? If so, that puts you in the middle of the problem, does it not? Through the energy that you generate, can you not see how you might affect the others. So sit and generate that energy, for you are powerful, my friend. You are a peaceful person, and your vibration is important on this planet. Jew, what have you been told that you can do about this? You are in survival. You shudder in fear, but not all of you are in Israel. What can you do? Do you believe in prayer? Of all of the stories of the ages, yours are known the best. And you've seen the miracles of God. You know how you escaped Egypt. Those things took place. You know you were fed from heaven. Those things took place. Is it such a thing, a miracle? Is it such a thing to believe that you could be delivered yet again? And in the delivery process, perhaps you could be the catalyst to create peace on earth. Did you know, Jew, that your lineage was set up in this fashion so that someday it could be solved with the core karmic race, the civilization that would make the difference and help be the catalyst to peace on earth? Or will you shudder in fear, and will you say, there is no solution, there never was, it's going to last forever, the problems are unsolvable? Which one are you going to be, Jew? Look back on the words of your master, Elijah and Elisha, and what they had to say to you that a human being is capable of. Look at their wisdom. And keep your eyes on Jerusalem. And temper your anger, for it is not commensurate with your magnificence. Christian, what are you going to do? What have you been taught about the light of the Master Christ? What have you been taught? Have you been taught that you can change things with prayer? And the answer is yes. Is it not so that part of everything you've learned is to start with prayer, to end with prayer, to go home and pray before you eat, to pray before you sleep? What is that all about? I will tell you, that is communication with God. It is strong, and you are up to it. Join the Hindu and the Buddhist and the Jew and send that light to those places that need it. Now is the time. You're part of the issue. A profound part, a beautiful part. Your light is so great. Muslim. You love the Prophet, don't you? All right, let me take you back to the cave. I want to give you something to think about. I want to give you something to think about. You pray as much as anyone on the earth, and you do it on a schedule which is regular. So why not start these prayers differently? It will not violate anything that you've been taught, for you're going to be praying for peace on earth. In the cave, the Prophet Muhammad met with the angel. And I want you to remember what has been written that the angel said to him. He was supposed to leave the cave and go out and unite the tribes of Arabia and give them the God of Israel. And that's the truth. Look at where the prayer rugs faced. They faced Jerusalem before they were changed to Mecca for political reasons. Look at this. Look at the core information and the beauty of the unity that the prophet asked you to have. And not just with Arabs. What can you do? You can pray. Powerful you are. 1 billion strong you are. Part of the solution you are. Oh, there are others, and I've not mentioned them, but you can put your name in there. What do you think about God? Do you think you can make a difference? Or do you think God is just pushing the parts around to make your life miserable? if you're a reader of this message and you're a hearer or you're in the room, I invite you to feel the love that we have. We've known that you are coming to hear, to see, to experience. It's a beautiful time for this, a precious time it is. I want to review for you finally who the light worker is. Let me paint a picture yet again for who the light worker is on this planet. There she stands, there he stands. Oh, look at them. They don't look like a giant spiritual being. They look ordinary and average. But then you start going inside and you see things that the masters had. They're balanced. That's the first way you can tell they're balanced. They're so balanced you want to be with them. You ever met somebody who just wanted to be with them? You just want to walk with them. Because they're not judging you. They're beautifully listen when you talk, and they say things which are appropriate and wise. They're not judgment of anybody. They don't make fun of anyone. There's no drama around them. There's a radiance that you can feel. There's a joy. And you just say, wow, I want to be with this person. I just want to walk with them. That's the light worker. And that didn't come easy, and it's not natural. That takes an activated DNA. That means someone's working on themselves. There's a vibration there that touches the crystalline grid. They know all about the Akash. This is a balanced human being. They've been able to solve the duality. Solve the duality. Duality is a puzzle, is it not? The duality is a puzzle. You've got free choice, but you've got an angelic countenance. What are you going to do with that? You're placed upon the earth where there's the darkest dark and the lightest light. How are you going to navigate? That's the duality. That's the piece of darkness that chases you around, the consciousness that you all joke about, makes you do things. They've solved it. They've balanced it. They're centered. That's the light worker. They stand tall even though they may not be tall. Their countenance seems bigger than it is. That's the light worker. They're sure of themselves, but they are not filled with themselves. That's the light worker. They look at you with compassionate eyes. That's the light worker. They care about you, no matter who you are, or what you look like, or where you've been. That's the light worker. Does this sound like perhaps it's echoing some of the masters that you have followed? Does it sound like the Buddha or the Christ? Does it sound like perhaps the Prophet Muhammad? And if you look at that, I'll tell you, oh yes. Because those are the attributes of the masters of the planet. And inside your DNA there is mastery waiting for you to capture. The lighthouse is intuitive. This person is intuitive. They know when to talk. They do not say inappropriate things. They're intuitive enough to know when to pray and what to pray for. They can look at somebody and know if they're telling the truth or not. They are not judgmental in all of this. They use it to navigate through their own lives. And they're no different than you. Their lives are just like yours. And one day they might be doing the laundry. And one day they may be sending light to the Middle East. But they're a lighthouse, and they know how to do both with the same kind of divine approach. You ever think of that? Ordinary things in your life. Can you celebrate the ordinary? Can you send light to your leadership as you wash the dishes? A light worker can. One who strikes the light walks up those stairs. They know how. They know how to put things in balance. They know what to do with the dark side. Kryon, what are you going to do with the darkness in my life? The light worker knows what to do with it. Long ago they put it in the back seat. They don't let it drive anymore. There's no more depression. There's no more worry. Anger. Slow to anger, very slow to anger, wise to respond. They look at life far differently, like the masters of old. And you might say, that's a tall order. That's a tall order. It is not. They're here. They're reading. They're listening. They're in the room. And they may surprise you what they look like and how old they are or how young they are. But they're here in various stages of training and action, like the warriors who train and train and train to be part of a perfect army, carrying swords that are not for killing, for celebrating. The bridge of swords. We've spoken of this again. The bridge of swords is part of the final battle. We sound like perhaps we're speaking in metaphoric tones. Indeed, it's the only picture we can give you, which is that this battle will indeed be solved and indeed have a solution to it. And the lighthouses carry the swords. It will be held high as those who are the winners pass under it. And who are the winners? The civilization called Earth. And the New Jerusalem. There'll come a day. There will come a day when the potential is so great, I will tell you, where these things will be behind you. Long after 2012. And you might say, well, I may not be here. Oh, yes, you will. You may be very young, but you'll be here. Because you're not going to miss it. You wouldn't miss it. You work too hard. You've been at this too long to miss the fruits of your labor. Don't you want to come and see a peaceful earth? Don't you want to? Oh, does it warm your heart to know that you all are part of it? Listen, reader, what are you going to do when you put the book down? Will you give God 30 seconds? Will you give God 30 seconds? Peace. No phones. No televisions or radios, just 30 seconds. And would you perhaps even dare to say, I am that I am, and the divinity in me is going to make a difference on this planet. I feel the truth when I hear it and when I read it. How are you with that? What about you right now? Oh, there are so many involved today. You have no idea as you sit in front of this meeting and you think it's just Kryon, and you're thinking you're a channeling meeting, that's all that you are. You don't know the readership here. You don't know how far this is going to go. And they're with you now. And so I invite you to join them even though they're out of time with you. And I want you to celebrate their healing, for they're having some as they read this. They're having epiphanies, revelation. They are important. They can do something. They came for a reason. What about you here? And I use that word, here, in this room. Are you ready to leave just like you came? What about talking to your DNA in a way you never have before? What would you do if I told you you could leave younger than you came? Did I note that some ears were picked up there? Yeah. That's the promise. That's what you have control of. Your aging, your health. Kryon, why do you talk about healing so much? And I'll tell you this, it's because the light worker does a far better job of making a white light when he's healthy. That's why we want you to stick around a long time. And not everybody in this room thinks they will. I know who's here. I know what's wrong with you. How'd you like to change it? There are healers in the room. I know who they are too. There are 4 people, human beings in this assemblage, who have profound healing knowledge that have healed many, that goes beyond anything that you've experienced. Would you like to know who they are? They do. It's your free choice, to look around to find these. Do you just pass by them? How about a sense where you could come up to somebody and know that's who's there? What if that was their gift? How would you know it? That's part of the interdimensional DNA affecting you so that you can tell who you're talking to. They may have a solution for your problem, and you're never going to know it, are you? Unless you start bumping around and meeting people and asking questions. Do you do that or not? This goes on all the time. Perhaps it's time that you started knowing more about who's with you in a place like this. My goodness, you assemble as light workers to hear these messages, and yet you're not willing to meet each other to the degree that you would meet the healers in the group. It's called synchronicity. It's why we bring you together. We challenge you, those in this room, to know more about those next to you before you leave. You may be surprised, you may be shocked that they have the answer to why you came. We're going to leave. The message has been stated. It's a precious message. Time is a sweet place filled with sacredness. Blessed are you who have heard these words, and so it is.
Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. The pendulum of reality swings yet again into my corner. And there is an element of disbelief. In a group of old souls, there is always this. They say it's too easy. Some will say it's too easy to fake. And so we say this to you before we begin this discussion. It's about love. That's what it's about. It always has been, and it always will be. And it's not the love that you think. There is a force in the universe even your astronomers have recognized and seen, identified, and they call it intelligent design. Because the universe itself is biased. It's biased into creativeness. It's biased in life creation. It's biased in love. There is purpose for everything. Astronomers, science, physicists, they want to see complete and total neutrality within all things, and they don't find it. And that's one of the things we want to discuss, the power that is starting to become yours in the understanding of energies around you which you have never identified as energies that specifically are what we're going to call informational. This is one of the first multi-dimensional channelings of a series, starting to explain to you in a better fashion concepts that have been misunderstood or not explained at all, in order to start you thinking about what you can do. And that is the purpose. There's a big distance between the nucleus and the electron haze. If you could go with me to the smallest of the small, you'd find an enormous amount of emptiness. Physicists will tell you that most of you are made of nothing. And it's only because they just don't see what's in the dark. And the multidimensional truth is this: between that which is the nucleus of the atom and the electron haze, it's filled with information, energy, love, and intelligent design. Difficult to explain how this manifests itself to your reality, but that is indeed the subject. So we'll start slow and easy. There it is, my friends, a rose. Imagine it. A beautiful rose. This one's red. And you don't like it. You don't like the thorns, perhaps. Maybe you don't even like the color, perhaps. And you say to yourself, I'd like it a lot better if it was a daisy. But it's a rose. Now, in single-dimensional digit thinking, or law 3D, the scenario is this: it's too bad you've got a rose when you wanted a daisy. Because it'll always be a rose, you know. And if you could look at the seed that the rose grows from and regerminates from, it'll always be a rose. Too bad about the rose, you might say. And so the consensus of thinking and the actions around it are this: it will always be a rose, therefore I will never be able to change it. Now consider for a moment a multi-dimensional scenario where the master gardener visits the seed. Imagine for a moment that the master gardener can tell that which is the seed to systemically alter the information of what it is. And so that the next time the cells start to divide, the thorns drop off. And the color changes. And maybe, even maybe, a daisy grows instead. And what would you call this? And the answer is a miracle. And that is how you define things that look out of the purview of your dimensional reality. I want you to start looking at these things differently. I want you to start seeing information that is multidimensional as energy. A tremendous amount of what you just call energy is only information. It leads us to the next phase of this teaching. For now we give you a discovery on the planet that has been made, that is being used. And the discovery is this: that you can address the cells, that is to say, the DNA portion of the human body, to change its informational structure. Not to belabor an issue, but you must remember what the scientists discovered about DNA. 5% of it is chemical, protein-encoded, gene-producing engine. 95% seems to do nothing. So what you have is this: a DNA structure, one DNA loop that has 3 billion chemicals in it, and 5% is the engine of the biological race car called the human being. And 95% is the driver. It's a consciousness. It's energy. It's information. And it's huge. And if you could change the information in those DNA parts, what would you say to them? Well, let me give you an example of something that's already been done. Let us say you're born with a deformed heart. Here is a heart that is not operating properly. The valves don't fit. And let us say that that is who you are, a red rose with thorns. And so in your reality, you're going to die sooner. You will not operate well. You may be on drugs when you're older, and you'll always have a deformed heart. You might ask the obvious question: since all of the organs rejuvenate many times over your life, why is it systemically that those stem cells are given information to continue rejuvenating a broken heart? Why does it stay deformed? And here's the answer: because the information stays static. Without something to change the energy of the information within the systemic system of the human body, it will always repeat what it has. The rose will always be the rose, and the thorns will always grow there. What if you could literally change the information in the 90% of your DNA? What if you could change not only the information systemically, but even subconsciously as to who you are and why you're here? They're starting to learn how. Addressing the information energetically in DNA so that the stem cells are given a pattern of perfectness instead of the deformity. And as the heart then starts to regenerate, as all organs do, slowly it becomes a functioning heart and the valves fit. And you think that's science fiction. I'm telling you, it's being done now. For on the planet, multidimensional inventions are starting to occur. There will be many more, pushing the envelope of your believability and changing physics. You've seen this, and you don't even know you've seen it. I'll ask you some other questions that you haven't really thought about. We brought these up before, and now we can discuss them more fully. Why can a starfish grow back an arm and you cannot? Because the programming in your body, in your DNA, in the information, the race driver driving the car has been instructed that those kinds of things only are to be done in the womb. And the instructions are always that way, and they repeat every time a cell divides. There'll come a day when you can change the instructions and you'll be able to grow back a limb. All of the chemistry is there. It's not that hard.
But the instructions say you can't. And so they don't grow back. Imagine the race car driver in a splendid machine that can go for so long with instructions that he can only turn left. That's what a race car driver does, you know. What if you straighten out the racetrack and suddenly you got a left-hand only driver? What happens to the driver when the racetrack straightens out and he doesn't know how to do anything but make left turns? You got to change the information that he has. And that is what is being done. When the spinal cord is severed, there is chemistry that races to the place of the severing, so it won't grow back. Did you know that? There is a hormonal proteinal structure that actually keeps it from growing back. How does that serve humanity? Well, it doesn't. Nerves are designed to grow back. And they don't. Did you know they even have addresses, color codes? They can find each other in the dark and grow back. And they don't. Because built into the race driver's information is not to grow back a spinal cord severing. There'll come a day when you can reprogram the systemicness. Stem cells exist everywhere in the human body, alive and well. They are what pattern what happens. Chemically, they are responsible for a human that is predisposed to disease. And that predisposition will be then carried to the child. And the imprint and the energy and the information of the 90% will continue and continue and continue unless it's reprogrammed. Unless the information is given to it to become different. It's not chemical. It's energy. It is multi-dimensional energy. New technology to reprogram pieces and parts of the body. Do you know what this means? There are women in the room who respond to this, who carry a gene that their ancestors carried and that they carry and that their children will carry on predispositions to certain kinds of weaknesses. And when you can rewrite your genetic print, none who follow will have it either. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Your children and your children's children will only have the reprogramming. They will not have the original information. Energy is like that. Informational energy is like that. And there's a lot of it on the planet. There are systems on the planet that have been misunderstood for a long time. Let me give you a couple. This is controversial. You may not agree. You may not like it. But I'm going to give it to you anyway. Humans love things that go bump in the night. They love to be frightened. They love to be scared. They love movies that scare them. And they love haunted places. Have you seen the upsurge in the interest of haunted places? Now let me tell you what they are and why they work the way they do. And now we get into the power of the information of the Akasha.
Human consciousness carries an imprint which affects the planet, and we have told you this from the beginning, 21 years of it. Human consciousness is what is going to change the planet. Human consciousness is information. It is information that you develop based upon what you think. And it's powerful. Human consciousness actually goes into what we have called the crystalline grid of the planet, which is a multi-dimensional grid. You can't see it. It holds energy. It holds information. When the planet is measured for vibration, it is the crystalline grid that is measured. And the crystalline grid only has on it what humans have put there. An interdimensional record of thought, of lifetimes, of happenings. And here's what I'm going to tell you. In certain conditions, in certain ways, a human life or an interaction of multi-lives together in a scenario that is profound for whatever reason of its profundity will create an imprint in a place. It's information and energy that will replay itself over and over and over like a recording tape in 3D. It's a haunted house. Did you know that? And here is some of the things, the attributes that we may not prove it to your psyche, but we'll give you something to think about. Did you notice that in a haunting, you have a scenario which repeats? The man comes down the stairs. The man goes up the stairs. The woman in the kitchen moves from the left to the right, sits in a chair, rocks for a while, moves away. If it involved dramatic things such as murder, the man comes down the stairs with the axe. Over and over and over and over. It's a good movie, isn't it? And that's all it is. Why does it feel the way it feels, Kryon? Because it is a result of human consciousness imprint, and you've got one too. And when you're there interfacing with it, it gives you chills, because it's real. Now science has gotten involved, as they should, and they're noticing something. The imprint, the haunting, carries scientific attributes, and they're all multidimensional. Guess what changes? Magnetics, gravitation, light, and even time. Because what it is a multi-dimensional event imprinted onto a place on the planet that plays over and plays over and plays over. Can you capture it on tape? Because it knows it's being observed. Because it's part of an imprint that is multidimensional. In a quantum sense, it knows. I can't explain that to you. You assign knowing to sentiency, that is to say, that which is intelligent in a human being. And it isn't either of those. It's a knowing that is quantum. It knows when a human being can be frightened, and it frightens it. Oh, I have more to tell you. Oh, there are things that you wouldn't believe that you can do. How would you like to get rid of that? Let's say it's in your house. Now, this may be very inappropriate, but I'll give you the answer. You're going to have to present an energy that is stronger than the imprint of a haunting. You cannot order it away. You already knew that, didn't you? No amount of huffing and puffing
or calling upon God will make it different. The imprint was created by magnificent beings, sometimes seeming to do ordinary things. There's a reason for that as well. You don't know who they were. You don't know the old souls involved. You don't know who it is, really. You've got to present an energy that is stronger than the haunting. Now, what could that be? As inappropriate as it is, I will tell you. Why don't you make love in that room? That'll do it. Because that's stronger. Anyone who's been in love in the room, and there's some secrets here that I know. Beautiful ones that I know. Knows the power and the energy of humans coming together in intimacy. And the angels sing, and you create a third energy which is more powerful than the two of you. And you know it. It's sacred. It's beautiful. And it's stronger than the haunting. Maybe you didn't want to hear that today. But what about other things? What about like demon possession and all these? And I will tell you this, it's different than you think. Because there are no demons. Humanity can conjure up the most evil of the most evil, and it can do it all by itself. And you knew that too, didn't you? Because you're powerful. The pieces in God, in you, even in your mythology, are responsible for the devil himself. A fallen angel. How can that even be? It is a metaphor of what a human can do on the earth with the energy that they have. Things are not always what they seem. What about talking to the dead? And how would that work, Kryon? How could you talk to famous people when in the scheme of soul incarnation, they've already come back as others? Now, if they've already left, how can you talk to them? And the answer is this: they haven't left. Oh, the part that you think is the human left, but the imprint of them and their entire life and everything they knew, their consciousness, their wisdom, their knowledge, goes right into the crystalline grid. We've talked about this before. Can you contact famous people and get information? Yes. Will it be accurate? Of course. Because you're talking to the source. The imprint remains. You mean you're not actually talking to them? You're talking to the imprint? Let me give you something to think about. I'm going to ask a question right now. It's going to be a rhetorical one. Who are you? I have old souls in front of me. There's a woman in the room who won't wear red. And you know who you are. I'll tell you why, because it got you killed. Because that was the color of the plume on your helmet, warrior. Because you were the captain, and they knew if they would take you out, your whole regiment would be in disarray, and that's what happened. Not only kill you, killed everyone around you. You'll never wear red. You just don't like the color. It's just not for you. You shun it, don't you? Old soul, who are you? Who are you? Are you the warrior who got killed? Are you the woman who won't wear red? Are you the mother? Who are you? It is a rhetorical question because in my reality, you are a piece of God. And so when you go to that place where you wish to conjure up one who has lived before and ask them questions. Who are you talking to? Are you talking to the Irkosh of a soul? Are you talking to that which is alive or dead? I will tell you, none of those things are accurate because you don't really know. It's even more magnificent than that. Can you ask Aunt Martha where the treasure was buried? Yes! And she'll know, because you're talking to the Aunt Martha imprint. And she'll know. Now, if you ask Aunt Martha, how are things on the other side? She'll say, beautiful. What's it like over there? Lovely. No, give me some specifics. I love you. She doesn't know. Aunt Martha knows what Aunt Martha knows. You think of it in singularity, and it's not. It's powerful, it's real, and it's there to be accessed. It's multidimensional, and those with gifts can access the wisdom of the ancients. Go back and ask them what they knew. Go back and ask them how it felt. Go back and ask them where the treasure is buried. You're going to see some of this. And those in the places of magnificence on this planet, wearing the costumes of spirituality, and the heads of state and religion will call it evil and will call it occult, not understanding that you are moving into a multi-dimensional state, appropriate, accurate, true, usable, correct, helpful. All of those things. Does that make sense to you? Let me give you a concept, and this will be the last one. I've saved the complicated one for last. That's my favorite one. We haven't done this before, my partner, so get it right. I want to show you how time works. And I can't. Because the reality of the complexities of multidimensionality preclude the human being's ability to understand it. It's simply not teachable. So I will metaphorize it and give you it in its simplest form, which is only a fraction of its reality. Time. We mentioned today that it is a singularity for you. There's only one of them. There's no multiple times. There's only one. And you're on one track on the planet. You're all on the same track. That is a singularity. It only goes one speed. It always has for your life. It doesn't move. The truth of it is it moves all the time. Another truth you don't understand is that each of you can step off the track and create a faster or slower one. You don't know that either. How do we explain this? So let me singularize it and pretend you're all on the same track for a moment. That's what you think anyway. That's easy. And I want you to build a track, a train track, which is time. I want you to put an engine upon it which goes in one direction very slowly, and that's you and your life. I want you to make the train track, however, go all the way around the earth. Now, to your perception, because you can only see to the horizon, the train track goes straight. The truth of the matter, it goes all the way around the earth, and you're looking at it behind you. Create that kind of time for a moment. Now that puts time in a circle. Now that is confusing because it's a conundrum for you. In 3 dimensions, you cannot put time in a circle. It is in a circle. Because it's in a circle, however, take a look at some of the attributes that are confusing to you. Let us say your lifetime takes about
30 meters. Not very long on this track that goes around the earth, is it? So you never have to really worry about meeting your past, do you? But let's pretend for a moment you could. What would happen if you drove that engine around the earth? Eventually, you would be running over the energy of what used to be, wouldn't you? In the same way of thinking, if you went around the earth several times, eventually you might be also running over what might become. Suddenly you have an attribute of time you haven't thought about. If it's in a circle, it means the future affects the present. And you think the future hasn't happened yet. It hasn't in 3D. It has in a quantum sense. Now, I'm giving you information right now, and I'm giving it to you this way because there are scientists looking at it in that way. Is it possible that the future could give you energy and information now? Think of this train track for a moment, and let's get more complicated. It's got layers now. Every time the train goes around it, which is a human life, things change. What if it was humanity in that engine? Now you have the past, present, and the future of everything that's ever happened on one train track in a circle. Now you have a situation where you could stop the train, dig down in the track, and maybe if you had the ability, pick up something that either hasn't happened yet or happened before. I didn't expect you to understand it. Only listen to it. Because that's what's happening. Let's complicate it. Let's say this track has to go up some hills and down some valleys. And the hills and the valleys are always the same. If you were smart enough and had a system that understood this time, you could create bumps where it might be difficult or easy and actually put them on a map. You might even call them time fractals. And you might be right. And every time you hit that place in time, whether it was in the future or the past, you got a hill or a valley. And I want to tell you what's happening at this moment, dear human being. I just gave you the simplest way I can give you the attributes of multidimensionality when it comes to time. You are visiting potentials that in your mind have not happened, but in a quantum sense have. You are receiving a vibrational increase so that you can look at the track of time and select where you want to go. You are looking at the potentials of the quantumness of vibrational shift and creating a culture that is going to go beyond what you think it could go, because it's going to fly in the face of all prophecy. Because prophecy is based on one track that does one thing over and over in 3D. And as soon as you start to become multidimensional, information becomes energy. And in that track of time is information of the potentials. Okay, I'll tell you, nobody asked. Except the ones who are asking. It would seem like I just turned a page. Because there's someone in here who wants to know what a crop circle is. And so I'll tell you, it's a good thing you ask. It's an energy stamp from the future. How about that? Now you don't know anything more than you did before. Not a future that you went through.
A future that has such a grand potential and a quantum state that is one with everything. You've already lived it. You're in an entangled state with that which you think has not happened, but which has happened so grandly, you already have peace on earth. And 21 years ago, I showed it to my partner so grandly. He can't deny it. It's his reality. And there are things in the room you can't deny, because there are realities of you putting lives together, healing bodies that you've already done. That's how grand it is. You're in an entangled state with a reality that's outside of your dimensional perception. Hard to teach, hard to understand, but easy to feel. Easy to feel. Imagine the solution is upon you. Imagine those things which you're planning already completed. Imagine yourself looking backwards and saying, "Now that wasn't too hard, was it?" Imagine the most perplexing things you've brought to the table today over with. Now, how do you feel about it? And human being, if you can take a breath of release and look at it like I can, you are becoming quantum. And you've just created it. Congratulations. Now go from this place in your three-dimensional way and walk through the steps that you've already done. And that's my message. Information is energy. In a multi-dimensional state, all things are possible. You come here to listen to a thing like this, old soul, you wouldn't have missed this. And I'm not talking about this meeting, I'm talking about this life. How many times have you lived waiting for this? What do you think the wisdom factor is in your Akashic record? If you've lived and lived and lived and lived and lived, how about that track of time? How many layers does it have for you? What about going in, drilling down, and picking up the wisdom of your ancients? Because many of you are your own ancestors. It's about time you started seeing it in that way. My partner says, leave differently than you came. He got that from me. Do it. Do it. And so it is.